Alright lads, welcome to my review of the Japanese Tier 2 Premium, the F4U-1A Corsair. I'm going to give a brief overview of the plane. You can either then skip straight to the gameplay, or stay for the extended review. This plane is at battle rating 2.7 and costs 1,150 golden eagles. For that price you get a great low tier plane that can easily get you started in the Japanese tech tree, as well as earning a massive amount of silver lions and RP. It gets a 390% RP booster, as well as a 660% silver line booster. For a 2.7 vehicle, there's no complaints with that. The Corsair is a boom and zoom aircraft with a decent enough climb rate. When you side climb, you can get above the enemy pretty regularly, and then dive down and engage the enemy at speed with your 650 cals. The plane is pretty good top speed and level flight, but it does have pretty poor low speed acceleration. This however is a characteristic of most of the American boom and zoom planes. Once you are at speed however, it does retain that speed well, especially coming out of a dive. The boom and zoom playstyle isn't really present in lower tier games. Instead, most planes are turn fighters. This means if you play your plane correctly and patiently, there is very little an enemy can do when you execute a maneuver right. However, like I say, booming and zooming is all about patience and predicting your enemy, so a smart approach is needed in order to do well in this plane. A tactic I frequently use is pseudo energy fighting. It's where I go into a fight with more speed and higher energy state, going into a vertical, getting them to stall out, and then using the Corsair's great flaps and energy retention to allow me to go into a vertical longer, stall after he does, and ultimately get a kill. I will show this technique in more depth later on in the video. Another big advantage you have is the fact that you are on the Japanese team. Low tier Japanese planes are very strong and have very high win rates, which means you earn more and have to grind less. Overall, this plane is great to earn silver lions, grind the Japanese tech tree, as well as learning how to effectively boom and zoom. I'll add a timestamp on the screen for if you wish to skip straight to the gameplay. If not, stick around for the full review and I'll give you my take on this plane and whether it's worth its price tag. As previously mentioned, this plane is a captured American F4U Corsair. During World War II, several American pilots had to crash land in Japanese held territories. This is presumably the reason for this plane being added as a premium. I did come across a picture of Japanese air personnel examining a crashed Corsair, so it seems that there was at least one case of Japanese testing an American Corsair. In game, the Corsair costs 1,150 golden eagles, which when purchasing a 1,000 golden eagle pack plus a 150 golden eagle pack costs around £6.40, €7 or $7.8. Here in the UK that is roughly 1 hour's work on minimum wage. The other tier 2 premium in the Japanese tech tree is a BF109 E7, costing only 1,000 golden eagles or around £5.50. We'll talk more about this plane later on. Unlike the American F4U, you do not get access to any of the hard points on the aircraft, meaning you cannot carry any dumb bombs. You do however get access to the American 50 cal belts. I recommend using the universal belts as they contain the most incendiary rounds and therefore set more fires. You have 650 cals with 2,350 rounds in total, or roughly 391 rounds per gun. 50 cals perform very well at 2.7 at the minute, with only a few bullets being needed to get a kill or set a fire. The effectiveness of these guns is great against fighters and bombers. The high penetration of 50 cals also means you regularly get pilot snipes, particularly against the Russian planes with very little armour. However, good guns mean nothing if you can't get those guns on target, so we'll talk a little about the engine and fuselage performance. The Corsair boasts a top speed of 653 km per hour IAS, at a height of 5 km. It is also incredibly fast at low altitudes as well. However, acceleration in the horizontal is slow. The dive performance on the other hand is good, however the plane starts to compress at around 600 km per hour. At these speeds it starts to struggle with both negative G and rudder movements. Overall, you can easily exceed speeds of 880 km per hour in a dive, and you retain the speed exceptionally well for a 2.7 battle rating aircraft. You can easily evade enemies above you by simply diving away. However, due to needing altitude to effectively boom and zoom, you will need to reclimb in order to be combat effective. I mentioned that the Corsair had good flaps, and from my testing I found that you can deploy the combat flaps below 480 km per hour, takeoff flaps at 280 km per hour, and landing flaps under 254 km per hour. The area of the wing taken up by flaps is very high, especially compared to a plane like the BF-109. This means you can get a huge amount of lift in vertical loops, as well as significantly decrease your turns. However, I would not really use this plane to turn in the horizontal, and would only really use your flaps during vertical manoeuvres. The reason for this is the fact that the flaps create a lot of drag, slowing down the aircraft significantly. Deploy your flaps when you reach the top of a loop to decrease the turn, and then retract them as you start to descend from the loop. A horizontal turn will burn your energy, whereas a vertical loop conserves your energy, as you regain the speed lost as you come back down out of the dive. Being located at 2.7 battle rating, you will face a lot of planes that excel in turning in the horizontal, and you'll encounter very few planes that match your vertical performance. Therefore, horizontal turns should be kept to an absolute minimum. All of these factors combined means I prefer to play this plane as a boom and zoomer with an opportunist mindset to energy and turn fighting. As standard, a side climb at 15 to 17 degrees and waiting till about mid-game where you can turn back in and boom and zoom enemies below you. This is the ideal tactic that I use. Failing this, if an enemy gets above you, you can dive away, which puts you low and fast. Here you can either run to teammates for help, or you can try and regain altitude slowly and then re-engage. However, this is not effective and you should try and get above enemies at all costs. At 2.7 you can be up tiered to a 3.7 game, where you are a bit of an underdog. This rarely happens though, as the 2.7 matchmaker is fairly busy and wait times are relatively short. In an up tier, some notable opponents are the I-180S, P-51, P-63, and generally anything that can outclimb you, as well as other boom and zoom aircraft which may have slightly higher climb rates. Therefore, in an up tier, side climbing is mandatory and should be taken a lot more seriously than in a 2.7 to 3.0 BR game. So what else can you buy around a similar price? Well, you can get the Japanese BF-109 E7 Premium. This is a great energy fighter at a BR of 3.0. You get a slightly lower RP modifier, but you do get the maximum silver line booster of 720%. The BF-109 is a good plane, but it is limited by its engine overheating issues, as well as a low amount of ammo for its main 20mm cannons. I personally have both the Corsair and the BF-109 and enjoy both of them. They both have different playstyles and I do recommend purchasing both these planes. However, if I was forced to buy one, it would be the Corsair. My reasoning for this is the fact that the Corsair gets over 2,000 rounds of ammo, and as long as you climb and kind of understand how to boom and zoom, it is a very forgiving plane. That allows for new players to make mistakes and still get away at the end of the day. We'll now go on to some gameplay, followed by a final conclusion. So we're here on our first game. We've got a nice gaggle of enemies behind us. Using our strengths to our advantage here. We're outrunning the enemies, getting some separation with them, and they're dragging them towards our friendly. So we're above the enemy and we're faster than the enemy. So as you can see, we've turned a bit to the left, which means that they have to turn and bleed some of their speed. Now they've all broke, so I'm going to use this to start my attacks. So this LA5, he's climbing towards me whilst I'm diving down towards him. So I'm putting my nose down. I want speed here, I don't want to shoot him head on. So we're going to go straight into a turn, into a loop, sorry. Now he's tried to follow me through this loop, as you can see. He's got nowhere near enough speed to get round on me. And just like that, we're straight on his 6. Dead straight away. 650 cals at 2.7, they just destroy. I think that was a full up tier. I think the LA5 is a 3.3 or 3.7. But as you've seen, we came out of that dive, we killed him, and we've still got lots of speed to evade that yak behind us. So we're going to do the same thing to that yak. We're going to get a bit of separation. We're going to turn back into him. Put ourselves back into a dive. Now he's pulling up towards me here, so I just pull straight up. When in a situation like this where you've got all the advantages, you don't want to go into a head-on. That's giving them a chance. Use every advantage you're given. You can see here we're using our flaps to get a better turn. Here we're using our flaps more to prevent ourselves from stalling rather than actual turn. But as you can see, this yak's already stalled out before me. Lucky not to crash. Well, we did. I don't know what happened there. Bit of a lag. But I shouldn't have took that head on. As you can see, straight into the vertical. He can't match us. He's not got the engine power to do it. And he realises here that he's a bit toast, so he tries to turn in towards me. Go into another vertical loop. Deploy my flaps. And we're on his tail straight away. That's another kill. As you can see, that those two fights, they weren't your traditional boom and zooms. They were more energy fighting. You can do that at this tier just because the planes, they've got pretty bad engine performance. This next game, it's against the Americans. This is a boom and zoom attack, coming straight down, getting a few shots and then running off. So this is your standard boom and zoom playstyle. As you can see, the speed that we're getting away from that F4U-1A Buffalo is really fast coming out of a dive. Now this P38 comes in. We can turn a lot better than him just because he is a twin engine fighter. But we roll back onto him, it's a reversal. We're not going to get this kill just because it's a bit off for my shots here. We do get a few hits, but nothing substantial. Well, we've got a Buffalo behind us. I'm essentially going to employ the exact same principles as the last game. We're going to go into a dive and get a lot of speed. He turns to shoot us. Take him into a climb. He's going to get a shot on us for a little slight second. But nothing damaging. In order to do this manoeuvre, you do have to have quite a significant energy advantage. But that Corsair tried to follow us into the climb. Didn't happen, we killed him. And our friendly KI-44 kills the Buffalo. That's pretty much this game done. As you can see, our team is just destroying the entire enemy team. And this is what you expect really from the Japanese low tiers. You just win after win after win. So our next game, against the Russians again. This is 80% of the time you'll be facing the Russians really. Which is a bit of a mixed bag. They do have some pretty decent planes. Now this Yak 7 is doing everything right to evade me. He's a lot slower than me, which in this case is a good thing, because once this point, as you saw there, I was trying to get my guns on target and I couldn't just because I was going that fast. So it's a good evasion from that Yak, but we're treating this as a boom and zoom game here. I don't think it turns out to be, but we boomed that Yak, we climbed away. Now that Yak 7B there, you saw he just had to climb straight up towards me. This game isn't going to be any fantastic in terms of kills, but it's just going to be in terms of theory of flight. So we're essentially dragging all these planes high and vertical. can see that Yak 7B in the top right. He's completely stalled himself out trying to get me, so he'd be an easy prey for my teammates if there was any near me. But sadly my teammates were all dead, I think, in this game. That LA5 had to turn down, so we've got one person out of the fight. It's just 2 on 1 now. And we're still just going to do verticals and use our flaps to roll on top of them. Should really have cut my engine here. Now we don't go... If I'd have carried on that turn there, that Yak could have got a shot into me. So instead we slightly roll out and go into a vertical again. That Yak's just done a really big 180 degree turn to get back onto us. Cut my engine throttle again, trying to get a shot on. Now this was my poor aiming here. Shouldn't really have followed him through this turn. And I think I turn off him in the set. So that was a mistake. I shouldn't have been following him like that, because you're just making yourself an easier target for your people following you. You don't really want to turn in a Corsair or manoeuvre in the horizontal. You want to go in straight lines, dives or verticals. And we're just back to verticals turns again. As you can see, this is 3 and 1 at the minute. We are going to die eventually just because there's no plane in the game that can face 3 on 1s and win every time. It just wouldn't be balanced. But how long have we been in this fight now? About 2 minutes and I'm still not dead. I think I do get a kill in a minute. I think in my head I realised I was dead here, so I turn onto this Yak to try and get a kill. Again, can't really manoeuvre in. The 2 planes behind me there you see are completely stalled, so we're going to go for this Yak 7B. Do kill him, but it sacrifices our airframe. I haven't damaged our engine, but you can see with all the bullet holes in our frame, it makes us very aerodynamically inefficient. So we're not getting as much lift, we'll get a lot more drag. So we're diving down now. I'm a lot faster than him in a dive. I cut my throttle there to try and get him to overshoot, and he does. And he ends up crashing. Don't know if you count that as a crash, you could count it as a manoeuvre kill. But you can see here now, my mistake here was I didn't put my throttle back up to wet, and I'm on 55. So I just stall out completely. And if I hadn't made that mistake, I might have been able to have killed this LA5. But now, there's nothing really I can do. So in the end, it was my fault that got me killed here, really. If I had my thrust onto 100% or even wet, I could have hung with him a little bit more. But even now, with my plane completely shot to shit, we're still pretty decent against him. You can see here, got my landing flaps out. We're only doing 150 kilometers an hour, and we're not falling yet. Got a very low stall speed with these flaps. You can just see how big they are. Absolutely massive. The reason I've not cut this out is just to show you the flaps. But I'm going to crash here in a sec, I think. Go into one last stall, and I've not got enough speed to even survive. I was hoping I could have got guns on here, but I was dreaming. So that's it for this particular game. Got one more piece of gameplay to show you. As we smack into the ground. And that LA5 didn't even get the kill, which is quite funny. So, last game. As you can see, my team have already made it into combat. That's because they didn't side climb. I've side climbed a bit, so we're going to get to the fight a bit late. But we're going to get there higher than our opponents. As you can see, I'm about 7 kilometers, maybe, well, 5 to 7 kilometers away from the enemies. And I'm at the same altitude as them. So whilst they're all fighting, I'm going to still be climbing and get above them. This is a pretty typical BR spread game. You've got a few Yaks, a few MiG-3s, a few lags. Lags aren't really an issue because they've got really bad engine retention. So going in for this yak. We miss him. Almost get shot by our friendlies there, but that was my fault for flying in front of them. Now this MiG-3's following me. He tries to break off. So we're going to pursue him. I know I'm faster than him. Yeah, not really the way you should be playing this plane. As you can see, he turns a lot better than me in a horizontal. But now he puts it into a vertical, which is a lot more well suited for me. I put my plane straight into a vertical. I get above him. He doesn't have the energy or engine power to get this high. Look at him, he stalled himself out trying to follow me. And I miss him here. That would have been a really good clip if I'd actually thought about it before we went into the fight. But we do manage to crit him. Lifting my nose up here because I didn't want him to get underneath, behind me and shoot me. But he's pretty much dead now. And pilots now. Like I said, the high penetration of those 650 cals, you do get quite a lot of pilot snipes. Especially against yaks and Russian planes which have very little armour. This is just a good little demonstration of the defensive flying. You've got a pretty decent roll rate. You don't really need good turn as long as you've got good elevator authority and roll rate in order to evade. See here, we went straight into a vertical. He gets killed. Even if that was a one-on-one, he'd have been in front of me. He wouldn't have been able to get behind me once again. So I'm taking a few long shots at this yak. Just speculative. And dead. Don't need a lot of hits to kill it with these guns. They just turn when you get an enemy plane inside your convergence and you press that trigger, they just explode. But I believe we're going to do a little bit of ground pounding just to show you. You can use this plane for ground pounding as well. 50 cals are very good. You can get long range snipes with them. You can penetrate light tanks as well with the 50 cals. I think you do have to shoot them from behind though, in like the rear of the turret, rear of the hull. But you can essentially win the game by destroying light tanks in this plane. So we've been ground pounding for quite a while. The game's in the end stage, there's only a few enemies left, but I'm low and I'm slow. Got an enemy coming in. He's a lot higher than me, he's probably faster than me. And you can see in the top left, I've only got 120 rounds left for my guns. So a less than ideal situation here. We're going to use the enemy's speed against him. We're going to turn into him, then turn back. I was really shocked here by just how well he can turn in that thing. Took me completely by surprise. He goes into the vertical, so I kind of am forced to go into a horizontal. Quite lucky here that he missed his shots, and our friendly does come in and takes off a little bit of his flat, but he's still combat effective even with a little bit of flat missing. So what I'm trying to do here is to get him to lose all that energy he's got. He has lost quite a lot of it now, but I'm having to use my wep here, and you can see that my engine's flashing, it's about to die. Trying to get behind him by stalling myself out in a loop. If I was a bit better shot there, I probably could have set him on fire. I got a lucky pilot snipe. Sadly, it didn't happen. We're going to go back into a vertical. I should have cut my throttle here and let myself cool down a little bit, but I didn't. Probably would have had a tighter turning circle as well. Just going to put that down to stress of battle. But we're both struggling to manoeuvre here now. I don't lead enough on that shot. I can't really afford to take long bursts. Down to 70 rounds now, which is 10 shots per gun pretty much. But I get one last pass and manage to set him on fire. It's a very, very lucky shot. Get another few hits into him, but now we've only got 3 rounds left. But luckily for us, he has gone down. I congratulate him in chat, saying nice fight. It was a nice little dog fight I had. That's pretty much it for all this gameplay. We're now going to go on to conclusion. To conclude, the F4U is a great first premium for the Japanese line, as well as for grinding silver lions. I'd say that this plane, along with the G55S, are my primary money makers on War Thunder. This plane used to receive the maximum RP booster of 750%. However, this was reduced recently, slightly reducing its grinding ability. It has a decent RP booster, which means you can grind out most tier 3 Japanese planes in a few good games, and it is very affordable at just over £7 sterling. If I had to choose one premium to own in the entire game, then this plane would be a really strong contender. Its great performance as well as potent guns with plenty of ammo means that if you know how to boom and zoom, you can effectively carry matches in this plane. I hope you found this useful, lads, and thank you very much for watching.